In the shadowed corners of history, there exists a whisper, a faint, unsettling echo of stories passed from trembling lips, of a phenomenon that defies explanation. It begins with the stories that slipped through the cracks of the mundane, spilling into the collective consciousness little by little, like shadows creeping into the dimmest recesses of the mind. These stories speak of children, ordinary children, or so they seem, yet beneath their innocent veneer lurks something darker, something that chills even the most hardened souls. It was in the quiet suburban streets, unremarkable on the surface, where these encounters first began to surface, threading their way into whispers and rumors. Tales collected from the night shift workers, the restless single mothers, the insomniacs peering anxiously through their curtains. They spoke of knocks at the door, gentle at first, almost hesitant, then relentless. When opened, there were no children waiting on the other side, only silence, or sometimes, faint scratching sounds that vanished before anyone could investigate. The first recorded accounts painted a picture of disturbingly normal-looking children. Pale skin, hair that hung limply, faces that held an eerie stillness, like porcelain dolls brought to life only to be hollow inside. But it was the eyes that terrified. Black, shiny pools that seemed to swallow the light itself, devoid of reflection, of innocence, of any humanity. No pupils, no iris, just darkness that beckoned and repelled simultaneously. People began to share videos, grainy, shaky recordings that circulated on obscure internet forums and early social media pages. In these images, a child's face would appear through a fog or behind a window, their head tilting slightly, unnaturally, as if observing with a sense of otherworldly curiosity. The recordings were often snatched in moments of panic. A flash of black eyes at a doorstep. A child standing silently in an alleyway as dusk dissolves into night. Voices would whisper, sometimes inaudible sounds, unplaceable to any known language, captured amid the chaos. Descriptions became eerily consistent. The children dressed in plain, outdated clothing, their expressions devoid of emotion, yet somehow permeating an unsettling sense of knowing, an awareness that is impossible for a child of their apparent age to possess. They would stare at you with unnerving intensity, sometimes speaking in soft, monotone voices. "Let me in," they would say, or, "I need to come inside," words spoken as if rehearsed, devoid of genuine emotion. When denied entry, they would often linger, silent, almost waiting, their gaze fixed, unwavering, as if drawing strength from your fear. Some encounters turned worse, with witnesses describing an overwhelming feeling of dread, as if their very presence violated some primal boundary. Panic would ensue, doors slammed, footsteps retreating into the night, or worse, a sudden, inexplicable paralysis that left them helpless as the children stared, unblinking. Reports surfaced of children knocking on windows, whispering from darkness, relentless in their insistence. As if they were drawn to human vulnerability, seeking entry, seeking to breach the sanctity of home and safety. The earliest stories are often dismissed as tricks of the mind, urban legends spun by overactive imaginations, fueled by superstition or the fear of the unknown. Yet, as more accounts surfaced, patterns, disturbing, inexplicable, began to emerge. The phenomenon was too consistent, too precise in its depiction to dismiss as mere coincidence or delusion. The origins of these encounters remain shrouded in mystery. Some theorists speculate that these children are not children at all, but manifestations, ghostly remnants, or perhaps, interdimensional entities slipping through cracks in reality. Others suggest that they are echoes of lost souls, cursed to wander forever in search of entry, or messengers of something far more sinister lurking beneath the veneer of the everyday world. Perhaps most haunting of all is how these stories began to surface anew with the advent of a modern digital age, where recordings and eyewitness accounts could be shared instantaneously, fueling a growing web of paranoia. The phenomenon appears perpetually on the fringe of scientific understanding and sifting through the shadows. In places where light rarely reaches, these children continue to lurk, mute witnesses and tormentors alike. What is it about these encounters that persists? Is it a collective hallucination, a cultural myth that feeds on itself? Or is there something darker, more visceral at play, an ancient darkness awakened by the curious and the unwary? The stories all share a common thread. The feeling of helplessness, that primal impulse to run, to hide, to deny the existence of what lies just beyond the veil. A blank, black gaze that promises nothing but dread. As the reports grew, so did the mystery surrounding their origins. Some claimed that these children appeared after inexplicable events, light anomalies, sudden drops in temperature, a sense of being watched. But no one could ever truly determine where they came from. Only that once their eyes crossed your path, your life would be forever altered, etched into the fabric of something far darker than anyone dared to admit. And so, we find ourselves standing at the precipice of understanding, peering into the unknown with trembling hands and anxious minds. Because these first encounters, harrowing, chilling, are merely the beginning. They raise questions that echo through shadows and silence. Who are these children? Where do they come from? And most terrifying, what happens when they decide to knock louder, to press further, eager to breach the walls of our reality? In the end, their origins remain a ghostly enigma, lingering just beyond reach, like whispers in the dark, impossible to silence, impossible to ignore. And so the stories continue, growing louder in the dark corners of our world, more real with each passing night. Because if these children are real, then perhaps the darkness is not so far away as we once believed. Perhaps it has been watching us all along, waiting patiently for its moment to step through the blackened threshold of our perception, bringing with it a silence that devours everything in its path. In the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, the city's silent shadows stretch long and ominous, whispering secrets that refuse to be silenced. Somewhere in the dark corners of the urban sprawl, stories breathe. They breathe in the minds of skeptics and believers alike, tangled between myth and reality. It's a line so thin, so delicate, that it's almost indistinguishable. Here, beneath the concrete jungle's indifferent stare, the question lingers. Are these tales mere folklore, or is there something darker lurking beneath the surface? Night falls, and a figure stands at the edge of a deserted alley, eyeing the nearby glowing screen. A digital voice echoes through the quiet, recounting stories that have haunted the city for decades, stories passed down, adapted, and mutated with each retelling. Urban legends, sounds of ghostly apparitions, strange creatures caught on obscure security footage, and whispers of supernatural sightings. These narratives seem to grow in the dark, fed by fear, curiosity, and the human need to explain the unexplainable. But are they just ghosts of the imagination, or are there truths buried beneath the stories that refuse to die? The skeptics dismiss these tales as mere tricks of the mind, excuses for the unexplained, or simple fabrications designed to entertain or scare. Their logic is rooted in rationality, faked photos, hallucinations, misidentifications. They assert that no real evidence exists, just shadows cast by fear. Yet, even the most steadfast skeptics can't completely dismiss the inexplicable reports from those who have experienced something beyond the ordinary. Witnesses recount encounters, strange figures seen from their windows, unusual sounds echoing through empty streets, inexplicable lights hovering over abandoned lots. Sometimes their memories become fractured, distorted by the passage of time or the haze of night. On the other side of the debate sit those who believe that these urban legends are whispers of something more profound, proof that reality is far stranger than fiction. Verified reports emerge, stories told by witnesses whose voices tremble with authenticity. A security guard caught a flickering silhouette in a shuttered building, a figure that disappeared when approached. A jogger in the darkness swears she saw a translucent figure dart across her path, vanishing into thin air. Researchers have analyzed recordings of strange sounds, sonic anomalies that defy explanation. Some stories are dismissed easily, but others remain etched into the collective consciousness, stubborn and resistant to debunking. These tales, whether myth or truth, serve as mirrors reflecting our deepest fears and unspoken hopes. They echo through the urban landscape, seeping into the cracks of old brick walls and beneath the layers of concrete that form the city's skeleton. And perhaps, more intriguingly, they challenge us to look closer, between fact and fiction, to ask, what is really hiding in the shadows? Are these stories manifestations of our collective subconscious, or are they windows into something lurking just beyond perception? In a dimly lit room, the camera pans over faded newspaper clippings, hushed interviews, and grainy photographs, each one a fragment of a larger puzzle. Some of these reports have been dismissed as hoaxes, while others continue to puzzle even seasoned investigators. The authentic, the fabricated, and the unexplainable blur together in a tapestry woven with threads of skepticism and belief. And yet, beneath all the noise, genuine questions persist. Could these legends, born out of fear and curiosity, be an interface between this world and something unseen? Are they echoes of ancient spirits, remnants of a time when the line between life and death was thinner? Or are they, as some suggest, the byproduct of a society obsessed with narrative, stories that manifest real phenomena or distort reality? What if, nestled somewhere among the myths, there's a kernel of truth waiting to be uncovered? The city sleeps on, its heartbeat steady but unpredictable, wrapped in a shroud of darkness punctuated by whispers of the past. Somewhere in the shadows, a figure stares at the night, listening. The stories continue to circulate, each one a thread woven into the fabric of urban legend. Meanwhile, reality seems to linger on the edge of perception, waiting for those willing to listen closely enough. And so, the question remains: are these tales merely folklore spun to thrill or scare, or do they hint at a reality just beyond our grasp? As we delve deeper into the darkness, we realize that the truth might not be what we expect at all. Sometimes, it's what we choose to believe that makes all the difference. And in that choice, perhaps, lies the key to understanding what truly lies lurking beneath the surface of our city's ancient shadows. The room is engulfed in shadows, but the camera lingers on their eyes. Those black, abyssal voids that swallow light and fill witnesses with a primal dread. It begins with a close-up, a slow, deliberate focus on a child's face, frozen in an unsettling smile that flickers at the edge of innocence. Their skin is pallid, almost translucent, revealing veins that seem to pulse with an unnatural rhythm beneath the surface. The ears are slightly pointed, a subtle hint of something not quite human. The lips are thin, often parted in a lazy, unnatural expression, revealing a hint of sharp, irregular teeth, almost like they belong to some predatory creature hiding behind a child's guise. As the camera pulls back, the details grow more disturbing. With deliberate precision, it highlights their hands, slender, elongated fingers that seem too dexterous, as if they were crafted for delicate destruction. The children's movements are eerily smooth, lacking the awkwardness or jitteriness typical of real children. Instead, they glide, almost floating, with a disturbing grace that defies gravity, uncanny and predatory. Witnesses often describe their demeanor as disturbingly composed. Their voices are hollow, metallic echoes that seem to come from nowhere yet reverberate inside the listener's mind. When they speak, the words are slow and deliberate, punctuated by a chilling silence that lingers after each syllable, as though their speech is a spell or a command rather than communication. Their laughter, when it occurs, is high-pitched, echoing oddly, tinged with an unnatural hysteria that makes the skin crawl. The psychological effects on witnesses are profound and visceral. Some report feeling an invisible pressure on their chest, as if a dark weight is pressing down from the outside, restricting their breath. Others speak of a cold sensation, freezing, yet invasive, wrapping around their minds, blurring reality and dream. It's as if the children's gaze pierces through their defenses, undressing their souls, revealing raw unease lodged deep within. The black eyes aren't merely an absence of light. They are a void that absorbs hope and replaces it with an overpowering sense of hopelessness and despair. Many describe feeling a sense of vertigo, a disorienting pull into something abyssal and unknown. There's an almost supernatural quality to their behavior, an aura of predation that defies the natural laws of physics and psychology. Witnesses often report that the children seem to vanish in the blink of an eye, or appear suddenly in places where they had no apparent access. They seem to manipulate their surroundings subtly. Shadows stretch unnaturally long, objects wiggle or shift out of place when no one is looking. Their presence is an unsettling reminder of something beyond the scope of human comprehension, something perhaps conjured from nightmares or dark folklore. This uncanny children's behaviors go beyond mere appearance. They seem to possess an unsettling awareness of their surroundings, often observing intently, as if they are studying their victims before concluding whether to strike. Their movements suggest a predatory patience, waiting, watching, and then acting with inexplicable swiftness. Witnesses recount that these children don't need to touch their prey. Their stare alone can cause unease so profound that victims feel paralyzed or drained, as if something fundamental has been stolen from their soul. What forces could give rise to such creatures? Are they remnants of ancient folklore, extrapolated into a nightmare form by modern fears? Could they be a supernatural manifestation, demons or spirits cloaked in innocent disguise, exploiting the boundaries between worlds? Perhaps they are the results of a dark experiment, a mutation of consciousness, a biological aberration powered by some extraterrestrial or otherworldly intelligence manipulating the fabric of reality itself. Some theorize that these children are avatars of malevolent energies, summoned or awakened by forgotten rituals, or unleashed during moments of collective chaos, feeding on fear and despair. Their existence challenges our understanding of reality and innocence. To look into their eyes is to gaze into oblivion, to confront the very notion that evil can masquerade as purity, that darkness can hide behind a child's facade. It raises questions about the nature of consciousness, the thin veil separating what is human from what is monstrous. Are they simply children, or are they something else entirely, voids shaped in human form, avatars of chaos? Leeches feeding on the vulnerabilities of the mind? As the scene dims and the shadows deepen, the haunting realization settles in. These beings are not just grotesque anomalies. They are harbingers of something ancient, something that exists in the fringes of reality, waiting for moments when the fabric between worlds is thinnest. They embody the inescapable fear that evil can take on a guise so familiar, so deceptively innocent, that recognizing it becomes the greatest challenge of all. And in this darkness, one question remains echoing louder than all the others. What irresistible force could birth these supernatural children, these black-eyed, predatory embodiments of nightmare, whose presence distorts the fabric of our perceived world? The answer is as elusive as they are terrifying. Perhaps it is something beyond understanding, something that seeks to remind us that innocence is merely a veneer, the surface of a vast, terrifying abyss lurking just beneath, waiting for its moment to emerge. In the shadowed corners of once quiet towns and abandoned streets, the legend of the black-eyed children persists, an ethereal mythology that refuses to be dismissed. These children, pale and unearthly, with eyes that shine like abyssal voids, are not merely part of folklore. They are a reflection of mankind's deepest fears and curiosities about what exists beyond the known universe. And today, we delve into the swirling chaos of theories that attempt to decode their very nature. The first whispers come from those whose voices have lingered in academia and science, trying desperately to tether these spectral stories to a rational explanation. We speak with experts, folklorists, psychologists, and even physicists, each offering their perspective. Dr. Emily Mason, a psychologist who has studied the psychological impact of the black-eyed children myth, suggests that these encounters may be manifestations of collective subconscious fears. People often project their anxieties about innocence corrupted, she explains. When faced with such unexplained figures, children with hollow eyes, the mind fills in the blanks, creating a creature that embodies both vulnerability and terror. On the other end, folklorists trace this phenomenon back centuries, linking it to old tales of elves, spirits, and shadow beings that come from the darkness to test the mortal realm. Professor Richard Halden, an expert in supernatural folklore, reveals that many cultures have stories of children or childlike entities possessing otherworldly traits, often serving as omens or messengers. What makes the black-eyed children terrifying, he says, is their uncanny similarity to innocent children, cloaked in an aura of malevolence or otherworldliness. They disrupt the boundary between the familiar and the unknown. But beyond the stories, some scientific minds weigh in, proposing hypotheses rooted in the unexplored corridors of physics and consciousness. Dr. Lena Torres, a physicist intrigued by anomalous phenomena, postulates that these entities could be a form of interdimensional travelers. The universe might be a vast fabric of interconnected planes, she theorizes. The black-eyed children could be visitors or debris from another dimension, slipping into ours through cracks in reality that we don't yet understand. Yet, lurking beneath the scientific and folkloric explanations is an unsettling undercurrent, an assumption that these entities harbor sinister intent. Some experts argue that they might not be benign or merely metaphors for childhood innocence misused by dark forces. Dr. Marcus Reed, a researcher in paranormal psychology, warns that their encounters often accompany feelings of dread, intrusive thoughts, and a desire to obey or surrender. Their piercing black eyes seem to penetrate the soul, instilling fear, submission, or curiosity that should not be there, he says. Could they be predators, feeding off our fear? As we sift through the myriad of theories, the narrative of these shadowed figures deepens. Are they spirits seeking revenge or redemption? Are they extraterrestrial beings observing humanity's reactions? Or are they manifestations of our subconscious, given form by fear itself? Each hypothesis paints a different picture, but none can fully explain the visceral terror they evoke. The stories collected from witnesses are haunted and fragmented, painted with a brush dipped in fear. One man recalls a night where a pair of children appeared on his porch, asking to be let inside, an innocent request that dripped with malevolence. Their black eyes seemed endless, swallowing his entire perception as he felt an overwhelming pressure, compelling him to comply. Later, he questioned whether the beings were demons, aliens, or simply manifestations of his own subconscious horror. The mystery intensifies as some researchers suggest that the black-eyed children might be a confluence of all these possibilities, a multi-layered phenomenon that defies simple categorization. Could they be spirits lost in limbo, trying to communicate or seek help? Or perhaps, as some hypothesize, they are probes or scouts from beyond, testing human reactions for some unknown purpose. Throughout history, for as long as stories of mysterious children have existed, there has always been a notion that the innocence of childhood is a fragile veneer, easily shattered by the unknown. And the black voids where their eyes should be are a haunting symbol, the obliteration of identity, the erasure of self, an indication that whatever they are not entirely human. The question lingers: are they here to harm, or are they simply misunderstood manifestations of our collective fears? Despite the scientific and folkloric explanations, an ominous thread persists. Some believe that these children possess sinister intentions, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment to step fully into our reality. And as the darkness pushes inward, as the stories grow more frequent and their appearances more unsettling, it becomes increasingly clear that the mystery of the black-eyed children is not just about understanding their origins but about confronting the unsettling truths about what lies beneath the surface of our world, and what lurks just beyond the veil of our sight. Theories swirl, intertwine, and collide, each offering a different lens, yet none revealing the full picture. But perhaps what unsettles us most isn't whether they are spirits or aliens, but that their existence challenges the very boundaries of our comprehension. In the end, some believe that it is not about revealing what they truly are, but accepting that some mysteries remain forever just out of reach. Echoes of the past, shadows of the unknown, and the silent whispers of the chaos we dare not fully understand. In the quiet, unassuming corners of the world, where shadows seem to cling a little too tightly to the edges of reality, there are stories that refuse to be silenced. They whisper in the dark, echoing with the weight of lives forever changed by encounters that defy explanation. These are not merely tales spun to spook or entertain, but documented testimonies, raw, unfiltered accounts painted with fear, confusion, and sometimes profound grief. Yet, beneath the surface of these stories, truths emerge that challenge the very fabric of what we understand about existence and beyond. One such story belongs to a woman who wishes to remain anonymous, yet her words tremble with sincerity. In the quiet of her home, late at night, she sensed something, or someone, watching her, even when every light was out. Her recordings captured faint whispers, voices that seemed to breathe from the shadows, yet when played back, became a haunting chorus of unintelligible murmurs. Her footage, analyzed frame by frame, revealed distortions, movements that shouldn't be possible, shadows that flickered out of sync with her own. Her experience was not an isolated incident, as similar videos flickered across online forums, each telling a story of an encounter that rooted itself deep within their minds. Then there was the story of a family living on the outskirts of a small town, where strange footsteps echoed through the house during the dead of night. Their security footage, an endless loop of uneventful nights, began to reveal subtle anomalies, doors that creaked open on their own, fleeting figures darting past the camera's view. They documented their interactions, speaking to the unseen through EVP devices that captured layered voices, some pleading, others angry. Analyzing this footage uncovered not just anomalies but patterns, repeated appearances tied to specific energy surges or dates, suggesting a connection between these apparitions and certain emotional states or rituals long forgotten. In another case, a series of recordings from a remote cabin in the woods captured a phenomenon that continues to puzzle experts. The footage shows nothing during the day, but once night falls, inexplicable figures appear, silhouettes that morph and dissolve, sometimes reaching out with outstretched hands or whispering indistinct phrases. These encounters seemed to push beyond mere visual anomalies, touching on moments where the footage flickered with a strange static, as if reality itself was flickering, unstable. Researchers examined these recordings with equipment designed to detect electromagnetic disturbances, and the results often revealed spikes in energy, sometimes correlating with the appearance of these apparitions. Yet, what makes these encounters truly chilling is the testimony of those who endured them. Their stories resonate with a common thread: a sense of invasion, an unshakable feeling of being watched, then touched by forces beyond understanding. These individuals describe sensations of cold seeping into their skin, voices echoing in their minds, or shadowy shapes looming at the edge of their perception. Many have documented their experiences, sharing recordings that preserve their terror, an unintentional record of a moment when the fabric of reality tore just a little. Authorities and researchers alike have long warned against engaging with these entities. Their warnings are stern, often rooted in the understanding that some encounters come with a price, and that the risks are not always apparent at first glance. Engaging with such forces, they say, can lead to psychological torment, spiritual disturbance, or worse. Why? Because these entities do not seem interested in mere interaction. They want recognition, to be seen and acknowledged, and perhaps, to be freed from whatever prison they inhabit. Some believe that attempting to communicate can amplify their presence, inviting unwanted attention, sometimes with destructive consequences. The photographs, recordings, and experiences meticulously gathered paint a picture of entities that are neither fully corporeal nor entirely intangible. They seem to exist in a liminal space, caught between worlds, haunting the boundaries of time and space. Their appearances are fleeting, their voices fragmented echoes of something ancient, something unresolved. These documented encounters serve a dual purpose. They illuminate the terrifying reality that dark presences do exist, lurking just beyond the veil of normalcy, and they act as warnings. For those tempted to seek the mysteries out, to peer into the abyss with eager curiosity, the message is clear. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. Some encounters leave scars, invisible to the eye but etched into the psyche. So, why do authorities advise caution? Because the very act of engaging, be it through paranormal investigation, spiritual ritual, or mere curiosity, can awaken dormant energies, unleashing chaos not easily contained. Entities that have lingered in shadows for centuries have learned to manipulate fear, using it to grow stronger, more insistent. And the tragic truth is that many who have dared to explore these encounters have paid a steep price, often losing their sense of reality, their peace, or their lives. What do these experiences tell us? That there are forces we do not fully understand, entities that dwell in the margins of our perception, waiting for moments of weakness or curiosity to surface. They remind us that some mysteries are better left untouched, their darkness better left undisturbed. Yet, for those who seek to make sense of what happens when the veil is lifted, these documented stories offer a chilling glimpse into a world just beyond the grasp of ordinary sense. As we delve deeper into these stories, examining footage, listening to testimonies, and analyzing the patterns, it becomes clear that these encounters are not isolated phenomena but part of a larger, interconnected web. A tapestry woven with fears, unfulfilled histories, and energies that refuse to dissipate. The warning echoes in every account. Do not provoke them, do not seek to communicate unless prepared for the consequences, and above all, respect the boundaries of what is unknowable. In the end, These stories force us to confront our own vulnerability in the face of the unknown. We are, after all, fragile beings, susceptible to forces that operate in the shadowed corners of existence. The documented encounters serve as somber reminders that some doors are better left closed, some whispers better left unheard, and that in our relentless pursuit of the truth, we may be awakening something that was better left undisturbed. Because once stirred, these entities do not forget. And sometimes when the silence falls, they whisper again, reminding us that they are still there, lurking just beyond the edges of our perception, waiting patiently for the next curious soul to cross their threshold. The air hangs heavy with a silent warning as the camera drifts through the dim corridors of history, intertwining stories both ancient and modern, stories whispered through shadows and broken promises. The black-eyed children, spectral emissaries cloaked in innocence yet veiled in menace, have become more than mere myth. They are a reflection of the fears that echo within the darkest corners of human consciousness. To understand why we are told never to let them in, one must delve deep into the roots of legend, myth, and the unspoken curses that have haunted generations. It begins in antiquity, where tales of spirits and malevolent entities traversed borders of reality and myth, whispering warnings in the faint language of our ancestors. The mythology of shadowy children appears in various cultures. Villages in Asia, Europe, and the Americas recount stories of demonic children, lost souls, or cursed offspring who would appear at thresholds, calling out to the living with voices that seem strangely familiar yet disturbingly wrong. These stories were never just tales meant to entertain. They served as cautionary lessons, warnings woven into the fabric of society to guard the sanctity of homes and borders. In medieval Europe, there was an age when the fear of outsiders bleeding into old superstitions became palpable. Allegories of cursed children haunted the collective mind. Beings born under dark signs, bearing the mark of evil, often associated with the devil or infernal pacts. These children, according to legends, had an unnatural stare, black, abyssal eyes that could see into the very depths of the soul. To let such a child in was to invite chaos, destruction, and ultimately, curses that could ripple through generations. There were stories of families struck by inexplicable tragedies after welcoming fleeting visitors with unblinking eyes. These stories became cautionary tales, woven into the consciousness to preserve boundaries and ward off the supernatural threat. Moving through time, the mythological roots deepen. In some cultures, these children are seen as vessels for evil spirits, souls condemned to wander the earth, unable to find peace. Their black eyes symbolize a void, an emptiness that absorbs light and hope. They are often described as having an uncanny ability to mimic voices, to imitate the loved ones of their victims, making the lines between reality and illusion perilously thin. They call at night, knocking on windows, begging to be let inside, promising safety, warmth, salvation. But what lies beyond that door is a different story altogether, one of darkness, despair, and divine retribution. The origins of this curse, or perhaps, this warning, are tangled with stories of old pacts and forbidden knowledge. Some say the black-eyed children are the consequence of ancient curses, tied to the primordial acts of defiance against divine laws. When humans trespassed into the unknown, seeking forbidden secrets or dabbling in dark magic, they unwittingly invoked entities that refused to rest. These entities morph into the children of shadows, cursed to be eternally restless, forever seeking entry into the homes and hearts of the living. Their inky black eyes are the anchor to the curse, a sign of their otherworldly origin and their inescapable link to the abyss. Historically, there are documented cases, accounts that have, over centuries, been dismissed as madness. Stories of children who appeared out of nowhere in the dead of night, knocking insistently, with eyes that held an unnatural glow. When families succumbed to their pleas and let them in, tragedy struck with relentless severity. Families falling ill with inexplicable diseases, children succumbing to sudden, severe ailments, or entire households plagued by unexplainable terrors. These stories echo the core warning: never open the door to the unknown, especially when those on the other side look too innocent, their eyes too dark. But why are the consequences so dire? Why do the legends insist that allowing them inside spells catastrophe? The answer lies in the nature of these entities, neither fully alive nor dead, neither human nor beast. They are parasites of the spiritual realm, feeding on fear, hope, and ultimately, the life force of those who entertain their presence. To let them in is to provide a gateway, a portal, through which ancient, malevolent energies can seep into the physical world. Once inside, they are not easily expelled. Their existence becomes entwined with the fabric of the household, corrupting it from within like a stain that spreads unseen. Some legends speak of curses that extend beyond individual households, ancestral curses that follow bloodlines cursed for generations after contact with these children. The curse manifests as endless misfortune, mental torment, or even physical decay. These stories serve as caution, deep-rooted warnings passed down to deter the curious or the naive from engaging with entities they do not understand. They depict a cosmic balance, an intricate web of cause and effect, where inviting darkness into your life can awaken forces that refuse to be silenced. Modern accounts, though often dismissed as urban legends, mirror the ancient warnings, suggesting that the danger persists. The black eyes draw us into a sense of primal fear, tapping into something deeply embedded within our subconscious. A warning that some boundaries should never be crossed. It is as if the universe, through myth and memory, reminds us of the delicate boundary between the natural and supernatural, and the dire consequences of blurring those lines. Discovering the risk that makes this warning so crucial is to understand that some doors, once opened, cannot be closed again. The black-eyed children are more than myth. They embody an archetype of forbidden knowledge, of darkness that whispers through generations. They symbolize the primal truth that some forces, once disturbed, refuse to give way to light. Their stare is a vacuum, hollow and endless, threatening to consume whatever hope is left. In the end, the legends are less about the children themselves and more about the human instinct to seek what should remain hidden. The fear of opening that door, of inviting the unknown inside, is perhaps the greatest lesson, one told in centuries of stories, warnings passed down like fragile relics. Because when darkness knocks, and eyes like voids peer through the peephole, the question remains: would you risk opening that door? And if you do, are you prepared for what comes in? These stories remind us that some warnings are etched in blood and shadow, encoded into the very fabric of our myths. They serve as a mirror of our deepest fears, that in seeking to understand the darkness, we might inadvertently invite it to take residence within us. And once inside, it may never leave. The night cloaked the world in heavy silence, yet beneath that silence, a sinister hum echoed, a whispers of forces beyond human comprehension. In the dimly lit room, shadows danced against cracked walls, flickering like ghostly sentinels guarding secrets best left untouched. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for revelations long suppressed. In the corner, an aged scholar of the arcane sat hunched over a battered tome, its pages yellowed and fragile from centuries of secret knowledge. The flickering candle cast shifting shadows across his face, revealing eyes that had seen through the veils of reality, eyes that burned with a mixture of fear and curiosity. He had delved into spiritual lore, poring over texts written in ancient tongues, seeking answers to the inexplicable phenomenon that haunted these children, these innocent vessels for something darker. He whispered, voice trembling, of demonic possession, an oppressive force that invades the mind, corrupts the soul, and twists the very fabric of existence. Tales from the past unfurled in his mind, stories of children lured by unseen entities, their innocence compromised and weaponized. Some believed these spirits to be tormented souls, seeking redemption or vengeance. Others whispered of demons that thrived on chaos, feeding on fear and despair. Could this be what entangled the children in its web? Had they become conduits or, perhaps, pawns in a cosmic game beyond mortal comprehension? The scholar's gaze turned to an unsettling image, a blackened mirror, tarnished and cracked, reflecting distorted versions of the children's faces. Images flashed, flickering glimpses of their eyes, hollow and unfathomable. Their voices, disembodied and echoing with a presence that defied logic. Many cultures spoke of entities that hovered between worlds, manifesting in human forms or slipping through cracks in reality, whispering temptations, or sowing discord among the living. Could these cosmic beings, angels turned malevolent, or ancient entities roused from dormant slumber, be silently orchestrating this chaos? An old legend emerged from his recall, a story of cosmic entities that exist beyond the veil of human perception, entities that occasionally breach the threshold and influence the living. Some called them fallen angels, others interdimensional parasites, feeding on suffering and chaos to grow stronger. These beings thrived in the shadows, unseen, manipulating human fears for their own inscrutable purposes. Were the children messengers, harbingers of upheaval, or minions, unwitting pawns in a larger, darker design? The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered yet persistent. Outside, the wind howled, carrying strange, guttural noises, sounds that seemed to resonate with the scholar's suspicions. The room's walls felt like a nexus point, a place where worlds could thin, where the supernatural brushed close enough to touch the mortal realm. If these forces were real, and all signs pointed to their existence, they might be the architects behind this disturbing wave of phenomena. Perhaps, in some twisted way, the children's suffering and chaos served as a conduit, awakening entities that longed to reclaim lost territory in the flesh and blood of the innocent. He clutched a talisman, an amulet etched with ancient symbols, gestures of protection passed down through secret societies resistant to such darkness. He knew that confronting these forces required more than symbols and knowledge, it demanded understanding. Understanding that these cosmic and demonic energies weren't simply evil incarnate but complex, intelligent, and deeply intertwined with the fabric of the universe. They thrived in chaos, in fear, feeding off the emotional vortices created in moments of despair. Could the children be divine messengers, unwittingly bearing the weight of a cosmic struggle they couldn't comprehend? Or were they already contorted, their bodies and minds hollowed out, becoming vessels for the malevolence that lurked just beyond perception? The scholar's mind raced with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Perhaps these beings had found a way to slip through cracks in reality, using the children's innocence as a shield to carry out their dark mission. Or perhaps the children themselves were the dark force's new servants, tools carved from innocence, corrupted, turned into harbingers of despair. In this darkness, everything became a question. Was there redemption? Could there be salvation from entities that existed outside the rules of our understanding? Or was this cycle eternal, the relentless struggle between human resilience and the cosmic entities that sought to exploit it? Every answer seemed to fracture into more questions, echoing through the cavernous chambers of the scholar's mind. As dawn threatened to break, the shadows retreated, yet the questions remained. The darkness had left its mark, but the true horror was the realization that these supernatural forces, whether demonic or cosmic, still reigned in the unseen corners of reality. The children's suffering was a testament to that truth. Was it possible that they were messengers of doom, or simply unfortunate vessels of a darkness so profound that human words could not contain it? The answer, like the shadows flickering in the candlelight, flickered just out of reach. And in the silent, breathless space between night and dawn, the question persisted. Are these children merely pawns, or are they something far more dangerous, agents, messengers, minions, of a darkness that refuses to be fully understood, lurking at the edges of our perception, beyond the reach of light? There are moments in history when the shadows of reality seem to stretch endlessly, hiding secrets we are no longer meant to uncover. Stories that, despite evidence and investigation, remain shrouded in mystery. Cases that defy explanation. Incidents that refused to be neatly categorized, and truths that stubbornly lingered just beyond our reach. These are real-life mysteries that echo through time, whispering questions into the darkness, questions that humanity was never meant to answer. One such case involves the so-called Somerton Man, a mysterious figure discovered on a beach in Australia in 1948. He was found lifeless, his identity unknown, dressed impeccably in a suit, with a cryptic message folded in his pocket, "Tamam shud," meaning ended, or finished, in Persian. Police investigations unveiled a tangle of clues, an obscure code, a forgotten book, and a woman's phone number in a nearby town, but no resolution. All efforts to identify him hit a dead end, his story frozen in time, the secrets sealed with his silence. Did he stumble upon something dangerous? Was he a spy, or simply a man broken by circumstances we will never fully understand? The truth remains buried in the depths of history, as elusive as the identity he took with him to his grave. Then there is the case of the Dyatlov Pass incident, a jarring chapter of mysterious deaths in the Ural Mountains of Russia. A group of seasoned hikers was found dead under baffling circumstances, some with fractured skulls, others with broken ribs, yet without any signs of a struggle or external wounds. Their tents were torn from the inside out, and some bodies showed unexplained radiation levels, a detail that investigators failed to fully explain. Theories circulated wildly: avalanche, secret military tests, Yeti attacks, or even supernatural phenomena, but none could provide a definitive answer. What force, unseen and unstoppable, caused such chaos and chaos's aftermath? The truth remains trapped amid FBI reports, Soviet archives, and folklore that refuses to fade. Another haunting story is that of the "wow" signal, a powerful radio transmission received by astronomers in 1977, emanating from deep space. It lasted only 72 seconds, yet in that brief window, it contained a pattern that many interpreted as possibly coming from an intelligent civilization. Despite exhaustive searches and decades of research, no repeating signal has ever been detected in the same pattern. The claim of extraterrestrial intelligence remains tantalizingly unresolved. Was it a natural cosmic phenomenon? A secret terrestrial transmission? Or a message from some far-off civilization that chose to remain forever silent? The universe refuses to reveal its secrets, leaving us in suspense, forever looking up, forever questioning. As we delve deeper into these stories, it becomes clear that some mysteries are embedded in the fabric of reality itself, impossible to unravel completely. Perhaps these incidents serve a purpose, a reminder of the limits of human knowledge, the boundaries of scientific inquiry, or the existence of forces beyond our comprehension. For every question answered, countless more seem to emerge, and behind every solved case, there's often a hidden truth calmly waiting in the shadows. Truths that were suppressed, lost, or perhaps never meant to be found. Yet, why do these stories persist? Why do they refuse to fade away, even with modern technology and relentless investigation? It's because they tap into something primal, an innate fear, a craving for meaning amid chaos. The unknown compels us, confronts us with our fragility, and challenges the notion that we hold all the answers. It's a profound darkness, a mirror reflecting our deepest uncertainties. Many of these cases circulate through the corridors of conspiracy, evidence, and speculation, but what remains undeniable is the unbroken thread of unresolved questions that grip us. What secrets are still hidden among these stories? Could there be something more, an elusive truth that exists just beyond the grasp of human comprehension? Perhaps the universe, in its vast silence, is whispering that some mysteries are meant to stay buried. And in that silence, in those unresolved echoes, maybe lie the greatest secrets of all. Secrets that history has tried to erase but that continue to resonate in the collective consciousness. Echoes that linger in the shadows, whispering of truths too dangerous, too profound, for us to know. We are left to wonder. What else is out there, concealed in the darkness, waiting for a truth that might never be revealed? The stories continue, and the secrets remain hidden, forever intertwined with the fabric of our unanswered questions, haunting us with the possibility that some mysteries are better left untouched. Forever echoing through. They tried to erase. What truths are still buried, waiting for us to find them? And what might happen when we finally dare to look behind the curtain? In the silent shadows where whispers of caution linger, the flickering breath of the unknown beckons us to listen, for in understanding how to defend ourselves against what lurks beyond our perception, we arm our minds and spirits with the most potent armor. It's a quiet, deliberate preparation, a dance of awareness and intention that might appear subtle but runs deep, weaving itself into the fabric of our daily lives. Picture yourself walking down a dimly lit street, the night's hush enveloping everything except the distant hum of life around you. You feel that flicker, perhaps a subtle shift in the air or an unexplainable chill, an instinct that prickles the back of your neck. It's in these moments, small yet profound, that we must be vigilant, not out of fear, but out of respect for what might be unseen. Preparation begins with understanding that your mental state is your first shield. A calm, focused mind trimmed of panic is less susceptible to manipulation or confusion. Know that safeguarding yourself is layered, grounded in concrete actions and reinforced through spiritual and psychological safeguards. First, be aware of your environment. Keep your senses alert without succumbing to paranoia. Trust your instincts. If something feels suddenly off, trust that feeling. Remove yourself from the environment if possible. Establish boundaries, mentally and spiritually, as you would put up invisible walls or shields, impenetrable and unyielding to malicious intent. Setting intentions is vital. Quietly affirm your safety and protection. Persist in these affirmations, even if doubt tries to creep in. Statements like, "I am safe," "Nothing can harm me without my consent," or "My energy is protected," are more than words. They act as psychological anchors. Visualize a protective light emanating from within, surrounding you like a fortress. Many who face the unknown find comfort in a simple act of prayer, meditation, or calling upon higher powers they believe in. These acts forge spiritual barriers that are felt as much as they are seen. In the physical realm, carry practical tools, a whistle, a flashlight, perhaps a small talisman imbued with your intentions. Even the act of carrying something meaningful can bolster your confidence. Be cautious but not paranoid. Trust in your preparedness without succumbing to fear. Share your whereabouts with someone you trust before venturing into uncertain territory, just as a sailor checks their compass and weather forecast before setting sail. It's a small act, but one that extends your awareness outward, anchoring you in community even in solitude. Do maintain your personal boundaries, physically and energetically. If you sense an unwelcome presence, don't hesitate to invoke your protectors. Whether that's a mental invocation of divine guidance, or calling upon your inner strength. Stand your ground with conviction. In your mind's eye, see your aura glowing brighter, stronger, impervious to negative influences. Speak out loud if necessary, asserting your boundaries. You are not welcome here, or go where you came from, can serve as verbal anchors that affirm your authority over your space. Avoid feeding fear through obsession or rumination. While vigilance is crucial, obsessing over potential threats can weaken your defenses, inviting the very entities you wish to avoid. Practice mental discipline. Dismiss intrusive thoughts that dwell on worst-case scenarios. Focus instead on what you can control, on your power to remain centered and serene amidst chaos. Sometimes, quiet breathing and grounding exercises, pressing your feet into the earth, feeling its solidity, can stabilize your mind and spirit, keeping you grounded when external energies threaten to shake your composure. Remember, not every encounter is a confrontation. Often, a simple, unwavering stance is enough to deter unwanted entities. Imagine magnifying your inner light and radiating calm confidence. These qualities act as a barrier, a signal that you are not prey, but a being protected and aware. Many traditions speak of protective symbols, carrying a cross, wearing a specific amulet, or drawing sacred sigils, each carrying power to those who believe in their intent. Choose what resonates with you, and keep it close, whether in your pocket, bag, or as part of your surroundings. Psychologically, guard against lingering fear or doubt. These emotions feed into vulnerability, clouds your judgment, and can even distort your perception of reality. If something strange occurs, instead of panicking, assess calmly. Look for evidence rather than jumping to conclusions. Remember that many fears are amplified by our own minds, especially in moments of darkness or isolation. Cultivate a sense of internal resilience, reminding yourself that you are stronger than any unknown force. Spiritual protection isn't just about tools or words. It's also about aligning your intention with a sincere sense of safety. Connect with your spiritual beliefs, meditate, or perform rituals that reinforce your commitment to safety. Envision a shield of light forming around you, expanding and sealing in your protective intentions. Trust in your spiritual allies, be they angels, ancestors, or spiritual guides. Call upon them with unwavering faith. The more honestly you connect, the stronger your protective aura becomes. And here's the crux. Know that avoiding the encounter isn't always possible, and sometimes, facing the unknown is unavoidable. When that moment arrives, meet it with a steady heart. Stand firm. Know that even in uncertainty, your mental, spiritual, and physical preparation gear you with resilience. Use your voice, your energy, your presence. Command your space. Breathe steadily, and visualize a shield so bright that it repels darkness. Prepare yourself. Know the safe steps to take if you encounter these beings, whether they are spirits, entities, or shadows that refuse to fade. These steps are simple but profound. Remain calm, affirm your safety, visualize your protective barrier, and invoke your spiritual allies. If you feel overwhelmed, retreat to a safe space, energize your protector symbols, and deepen your connection with your higher self. Never doubt the strength of your consciousness. Your awareness is your greatest armor. In this silent war of unseen forces, awareness keeps you present, intention keeps you protected, and faith keeps you resilient. Remember, the true safeguard is within you. The deep knowing that you are worthy of safety and that your light, no matter how faint or flickering, is enough to repel the darkness seeking entry. Hold on to that truth. Stay vigilant but peaceful. Trust yourself, trust your plan, and step forward with all the courage you can summon, for in doing so, you affirm your right to exist unscathed in this complex, shadowed world, an unbreakable beacon amid the darkness. In the cold, silent moments that followed the chaos, as the dust began to settle and the shadows across the room dimmed, a chilling realization seeped into the darkness. We've seen the evidence, the photographs that defy explanation, the recordings that echo with unexplainable distortions, voices that shouldn't exist, whispering truths too terrible to ignore. Each piece of evidence, each testimony from witnesses who dared to confront the unknown, paints a picture too horrifying to dismiss. These entities are real, lurking in the unseen corners of our reality, waiting for us to forget or dismiss them as mere myth. They move through the spaces we think we control, slipping through the cracks of our perception and into the fabric of our everyday lives. The testimonies of those who have encountered them are harrowing. One warned of an entity that appeared as nothing more than a flicker in peripheral vision, yet its presence suffused the room with a suffocating weight, draining hope and whispering madness into their minds. Another spoke of a shadow figure that followed them home, a dark silhouette that grew larger, more grotesque, feeding on the fear it generated, transforming their sanctuary into a nightmare realm from which they could never fully escape. The stories are consistent, their themes unshakable, manifestations that defy logic, entities that thrive in the spaces between dimensions, feeding on the helpless. Some have tried to dismiss these encounters as hallucinations, sleep paralysis, or tricks of the mind, but even as skeptics gather, the evidence persists. Video after video, photograph after photograph, capturing orbs that defy physics, figures that waver between reality and shadow. These are not simple coincidences or tricks. They are persistent, unexplainable, and undeniably real. And yet, the danger is not always immediate or obvious. Far from the theatrical horror stories, these entities are insidious, their presence often subtle but their influence devastating. They disorient, manipulate, and destabilize. A woman's voice crashes through the recordings with desperation, begging for help when no one else can see her tormentor. A man's journal, discovered long after his disappearance, warns of a growing darkness, a growing hunger, living just beyond the threshold of human sight. Their stories echo with dread and helplessness because they reveal an unsettling truth. Once aware of these entities, there is no turning back. Ignorance may have been bliss, but knowledge is a curse. The warnings are clear, whispered through the ages and reinforced by every new encounter, every encounter that the brave or foolish attempt to dismiss. These entities are not just figments of imagination or leftover spirits. They are something else, something primordial and unknowable. They are ancient, predating human civilization, and might outlast it. The more we try to suppress or forget them, the bolder they become, lurking just beyond the person's view, waiting for the moment when someone's curiosity turns into recklessness. Our narratives, shaped by fear and awe, serve as warnings, an unheeded call to respect the unknown. But many still dismiss these stories, believing in the safety of knowledge, of control, of science. Yet every piece of unexplainable video, every testimony of a shadow that lurked where it shouldn't, screams a warning, underscoring that these entities should never be underestimated, never dismissed as fiction or coincidence. They are real, they are dangerous, and they are watching. As we conclude this dark exploration, it becomes impossible to ignore the scale of the threat. These entities are not afraid to show themselves. Once they feel safe, or when we cross a particular line of curiosity or ignorance. They feed on fear, yes, but their hunger goes far beyond simple hunger. They are predators, and we are the prey, often unaware of the game until it's too late. So, I leave you with this final, eerie reflection. The stories, the evidence, the experiences, they all serve as a stark reminder that the unseen is more alive than we dare admit. It's a realm that refuses to stay silent, whispering to those foolish enough to listen. How many more must suffer before we finally understand? How many more will be lost or forever changed by what lurks just beyond our perception? Will you heed the warning? Or will you take your chances, dismissing the warnings as nothing more than stories, until the darkness comes for you in a way you cannot deny? The choice is yours, but remember, the entities don't need an invitation. They are always ready to remind us that we are never truly alone in the shadows, that the darkness is never as empty as it seems. Be cautious, for once you realize what's out here, there's no going back. And the truth, as horrifying as it is, waits patiently in the darkness, to be acknowledged, feared, and ultimately, never ignored again.